Author and historian Dr. Webster Griffin Tarpley. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV, Dr. Tarpley. Now, some analysts believe that a buffer zone would be a declaration of war on a part of the Turkish government, as it would require the militarization of the border area. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think that's right, and that may be even understating the danger. This is an act of incalculable folly on the part of Prime Minister Erdogan and Foreign Minister Davutoglu. I've been looking at reports from the Associated Press, from Reuters, the Washington Post, all suggesting that there's been a meeting between Obama and Erdogan on the occasion of that conference on controlling nuclear materials in South Korea, and that some kind of a deal has been struck in this direction. And we should be very clear. The so-called buffer zone is a euphemism for an act of war. It means occupying a strip of Syrian territory. The idea being that the NATO-backed death squads, along with their fellow travelers, the various deserters and fanatics and other people, mercenaries that they've accumulated, would then use that buffer zone for further actions against Syria. But if you do that, of course, you've simply moved the line, and at that point it would become a fighting front. And if the Syrians shoot back, they'd be shooting against the Turkish forces. So it's a big step towards war. Maybe not automatically, but one or two steps further down the road, you can see a war. I recall a conversation I had last November in Beirut with General Aoun of Lebanon, very experienced military man. He pointed out that Turkey is the last country in the world that should be looking for foreign adventures like this. They have one split, which is between the political parties, which are Islamic, and the generals, which are secular. But they've also got a 25% of their population who are Kurds. Now, if it looks like Syria is going to break up and be attacked by NATO, the Kurds will rise in rebellion, and that rebellion will spread into Turkey.
Well, yes, that brings me to the next question, Dr. Tarpley. Critics have drawn parallels between the autonomy of Iraq's Kurdistan region after the U.S. occupation and what is now happening in Syria, as most rebels are from a Kurdish background. Would you also say that this may be a step two in Western plans for propping up a pro-U.S. Kurdish state in the region?
If you've got a de facto Kurdish entity in northern Iraq, a de facto Kurdish entity in northern Syria, then there's going to be a gravitational pull on the Kurds in Turkey to join that, to say nothing of Iran. And you can see through this what the goal of the imperialists is. The adventurism and the lunacy of the imperialists has reached a new height. The rebellion in Syria has essentially been defeated. The Syrian army is now in the process of mopping up these NATO-backed death squads and the fellow travelers. That's happened in Homs, it's happened in Idlib, it's happened in Daraa, it's happened also along that Iraq to Syria border. But now, in some bid to snatch something from the jaws of defeat, Obama and Hillary Clinton seem to be shooting the works. But they're doing it at Turkish expense. This is the key thing. This is known as buck passing. This is essentially playing Turkey against Syria and possibly other countries with the goal of destroying all of them. This is the kind of thing that Zbigniew Brzezinski is noted for. Don't have the U.S. attack Syria or some other country, maybe Iran, but get Turkey to do it, and then you can arbitrate the entire thing. You can destroy all of the parties involved, which is ultimately the goal of imperialism.
And all this is being done in preparation of the Friends of Syria meeting to be held soon. What can we expect to see coming out of it, other than just pledges and promises of support for Syrian armed groups?
Well, the last Friends of Syria conference we had was in Tunis, and that was a debacle, right, as everybody said. With friends like that, Syria doesn't need enemies. It is an enemies of Syria conference. The previous one failed because the goal was really to get up hysteria in favor of an armed intervention against Syria. That failed. Now this time, the pressure will be even greater. What you can look for is a bidding war of inflationary body counts among the forces of the Syrian National Council, the coordination, the observatory, the Free Syrian Army, all of them are going to be pumping up their estimates of how many people have gotten killed to try to create a world hysteria that would then push the Turks into this step. It's national suicide for Turkey if they do it. Ataturk would have known that. The current Turkish leadership scorns Ataturk. If they'd followed his wisdom, they wouldn't be in this situation, and they need to pull back.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. That was author and historian Dr. Webster Griffin Tarpley.